Hello everyone. Today we're diving into one of the most important settings on your Canon Rebel EOS T7 camera, the f-stop. The f-stop is also known as the aperture. Understanding how to adjust it can help you take stunning professional looking photos with incredible depth and focus. So, what exactly is f-stop? In simple terms, f-stop refers to the opening of the lens diaphragm through which light enters. It affects two key things in your photos: the amount of light that hits the sensor and the depth of field. Basically, how much of your photo is in focus. The smaller the f-stop number, like f3.0 or 3.5, the larger the aperture opening, which creates a shallower depth of field. This means your subject will be in sharp focus while the background is blurred. A larger f-stop, like f16 or f22, will give you a deeper depth of field, so more of the scene is in focus. Now, let's walk you through how to adjust the f-stop on your Canon EOS T7. For best control, we're going to use aperture priority mode. This mode allows you to set the f-stop while the camera automatically adjusts the shutter speed. First, turn on aperture priority mode. This stands for aperture value, which is another term for aperture or f-stop. Step 2, we're going to adjust the f-stop value. Turning it to the right will increase the f-stop, smaller aperture. Turning it to the left will decrease the f-stop for a larger aperture. You'll see the f-stop number change on the camera's display screen. Now, once you've set your desired f-stop, take a look at the display. For this example, we'll start with a low f-stop, around f2.8. Then move to a mid-range f-stop like f8, and then finally a high f-stop like f16 to see the differences in the depth of field. Now, let's take 3 photos with different f-stops to see how aperture changes the depth of field. We have 3 objects at varying distances from the camera. Let's focus on the middle object and see how each f-stop affects the background and foreground focus. For our first shot, we're using a low f-stop of 3.5. This will give us a shallow depth of field. The middle object will be in sharp focus, while the objects in front and behind will appear blurred. Let's take the shot and see how it looks. As you can see, only the middle object is in sharp focus, while the others are nicely blurred. This creates that beautiful broken effect, which is perfect for portraits or close-ups. Now, let's try a mid-range f-stop of f8. This gives us a bit more depth of field, so we should see a bit more detail in both the background and the foreground. Let's take a look. With f8, we still have the middle object in focus, but we can see a bit more clarity in other objects. This setting works well for group shots or scenes where you want a balance between focus and background blur. Finally, let's use a high f-stop of f16. This will give us a deep depth of field, meaning almost everything in the scene will be in focus. Let's see how it looks. With f16, all 3 objects are sharp, from the object in the foreground to the object in the background. This setting is ideal for landscapes or scenes where you want to see every detail in focus. So let's recap what we learned using a low f-stop like f3.5, which gives you a shallow depth of field, great for isolating an object against a blurred background. Moving on to a mid-range like f8, balances focus and some background blur, perfect for a wider focus range, and a high f-stop of f16 gives you a deep depth of field where almost everything is in focus, which is great for landscapes or complex scenes. When deciding on an f-stop, think about what your subject is and how much of the background you want to include in focus. Experiment with different settings, and remember that there's no one-size-fits-all. Adjusting f-stop can give your photos more impact and make your subject stand out beautifully. Thanks for joining me on this quick lesson on f-stops with the Canon Rebel EOS T7. So grab your camera, try these steps, and see how aperture can transform your photos.